How you doing, Martin Lopez from Men's Breakthrough? It's been a while since I've done the Breakthrough the Hangouts, and we're doing it now. So welcome to the first Hangout of 2023. It's crazy. How can you believe it's like 2023, man? So one of the things that we do on the Hangouts is we have real conversations, and today is not going to be any different than that. So once again, like welcome to Men's Breakthrough Hangout, and what else? So let me look at my notes here. So today's topic is I'm right and you're wrong. I'm right and you're wrong. And we're going to talk about that from perspectives, because, I know for me in my marriage, there was a lot of things that I thought I was right about and a lot of things I thought Yvette was wrong about. And even in my current relationship, I got an amazing girlfriend and I think she's wrong about some stuff. And the power of being able to look at yourself and be able to look at other people and be able to have your perspective, right? You got to have your perspective because, we're smart guys. I've been around for 58 years. My guests are probably about the same amount of time that I've been around. And so they've accumulated a lot of knowledge. They've had good things happen and bad things happen. And they have their perspective, and they're going to have the perspective about what I have to say. And I'm not saying I'm right. I'm just saying this is my perspective, right? But when it comes to marriage, let me bring them on right now and finish this introduction. So here, Bryan, Jeff, how you guys doing?
Hey, how's it going?
So, like when you're married, you agree and you disagree, right? And then how do you know who's right and who's wrong? For me, it's like I'm right because it's me talking. So I'm right because it's me, right? And then you're wrong because you don't have my same perspective. And that's kind of typically how we go through perspectives, right?
Yep.
And what we're saying in Men's Breakthrough is if you can have a neutral perspective, like you can look at your perspective, and then you can look at the other person's perspective. I might be overdriving here. So if you can look at your perspective and be open to the other person's perspective at the same time, like that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool skill. So first off, I'm going to have Bryan introduce himself, and then Jeff, I'm going to have you introduce yourself,
okay. Right.
And then we'll go from there, and we're going to have a good time talking. So Bryan, tell us about yourself. Tell us about some Bryan.
Brian, give me some Bryan love. Hi, Tarr, San Diego. Love is what all about. CRM pros. I help businesses to be able to manage their online relationships and make them profitable. And just relationships is what I love. And I'm so excited to be here to share with Martin some of the stuff that I went through that maybe somebody else needs to hear so they don't have to go through it.
I love it. You're breaking up just a little bit, Bryan. So if you check your connection to make sure, because you're like, it's going cracking. It's going. So if you don't mind checking your connection just to make sure it's working good. Jeff, so I'm going to give you a precursor. Jeff, I just met you, brother. I just met you. You came and you connected on our Facebook page,
right?
And then you wrote some stuff, and I was like, dude, I dig it. This guy has a YouTube. Tell everybody, I'm done.
Thank you so much. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. I mean, it was a big shock because a lot of times you just do things on YouTube and you don't know if anyone's seeing it, especially if you're just starting out. But
especially if you ask your ex-wife.
Yeah, exactly. Who was just like told me the other day that I was crazy and I needed help because I'm sitting in the hot tub talking about divorce. It is what it is. But you know what? The cool thing, a little bit about me, I'm an attorney. I'm actually an attorney, and so this subject that you're talking about is actually really fascinating because we're taught actually to argue both sides of an argument. So and that can have some drawbacks in a relationship, in a marriage. So I'm an attorney right now. I work for the Social Security Administration, but I used to be a prosecutor. And then after I was a prosecutor for 5 years, I was a defense attorney, and I actually had my own office, and then I did divorces. So I have like several divorces under my belt. And I would never practice family law again. But anyway, I'm just here. I'm a part of this community. I'm a 2-time loser. Not really. I'm a 2-time winner because divorce is
2-time vet. You're a vet.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Hey, I always look at it this way. Divorce is just success. I mean, I successfully got out of a relationship, and now I can successfully get into another relationship. So that's just how I see it because I choose to look at everything positive in a positive manner.
That's awesome, brother.
All right.
Well, you know, we call the page, this Facebook page, we call it happydivorced.life.
Yep. Yep.
Because, you know, if you're going to be divorced, you might as well be happy, like if if it didn't work out, like, I don't know,
No.
make the best of it, right?
No, I totally agree. And here's the thing. So, I've gone on dating apps now because I'm 56, so I'm too old to be going into clubs. So I do the dating apps, and when I put my profile, I'm just like straight. Look, we're all like used cars right now. We got mileage and all this stuff, and basically the way I look at the marriages and these relationships, I've come to look at them now. It's like, I think I did a video yesterday. And it's like, who buys a car at 30 and expect it to last for 50 years?
Yeah.
It's like, we buy a car and at 30 years old, we're thinking one way, we live a certain place. And then that car breaks down and we get another car. And I think that's the same way with relationships. Some people get it right the first time. Others, like myself, I got one ride. It went for 2 years, and I got another ride. It went for 13 years. But
You ride your cars a lot longer than I do, man.
Exactly. But people have no problem about going to this, going to a used car. They'll buy a car, and then all of a sudden they don't want a sports car anymore. They want a minivan. Then they want, and that's what happens in life. You buy when you're young, you get the hot one, and because you're thinking a certain way. Then you get older, when you get a little bit more mature one, who's like, it's like nah. So I don't think there's any right or wrong. I just think that we're just living life, and it's just trying to be happy, because life is too short to be miserable. So
no doubt. That's great perspective. Yeah. What about you, Brian? Oh, I got you on mute. Let me unmute you because you see if your sound.
No wonder he wasn't cutting in.
It wouldn't have mattered anyhow.
That's right. How old's your car? How long have you had your car there, Brian?
I've had my car for a few years. I'm not saying, because it's a real good kept secret.
There you go.
I had somebody the other day said, "Man, for a 40-year-old, you're looking good." I'm like, "You're my new best friend."
That's it.
Yeah.
Love it. Yeah, I like the analogy of the cars. I'm going
You're still
someplace.
breaking up, brother. You still have, I don't know what it is. You still have a lot of breakup.
Okay.
But that's good. It's just.
Is this coming through?
Yeah, it's just, that's okay. It's just, we'll listen to it later and figure it out next time. For the next time.
Okay. So if I speak a little slower, is it going to be different?
It just crackles when you talk. That's all.
Okay.
Just keep going, man.
Okay. Cool.
Are you on an iPad or a computer?
On an iPad.
Yeah, that might be why. I don't know. We'll.
Yeah. How's it coming across on the other end?
It's crackling, but it is what it is. It's cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Not sure. Okay. I can kind of hear a feedback. I don't know what that is about anything.
Yeah, you need.
We'll just roll.
That's all.
Yeah, we'll just roll with it. We'll just roll with it and see what happens. I think I learned a lot, like Jeff was saying, that divorce needed to end things. They just needed to end. It was time for it. Neither one of us had admitted it was over.
Mm.
And I think the interesting perspective when you're talking about relationships, trying to get it right again, is I was in a relationship for the last 14 years. Learned a lot. Amazing woman. We grew together. But over the last year, we realized the relationship wasn't growing anymore. And it was over again. And I needed to be able to end it and still stay friends. And so I'm still learning about relationships, and I'm learning that relationships are a reflection of who I am. So now it's time to work on me. And I feel that the most intimate relationship that I want is going to come from a reflection of who I am.
That's cool.
So I'm looking forward to working on this and making this, like you said, polished, shiny, sexy, attractive.
That's it. Absolutely. The idea. So what we're talking about, like the topic today is, let me just switch this up so we're all here. So the topic today is, I'm right, you're wrong. I'm right, you're wrong.
Okay.
So Jeff, you were talking about it as an attorney, you have learned a skill to navigate that, right?
Yeah. First day in law school, you've heard the stories, and there's a case, and they'll tell you to pick a side, and like in our class, they just said, okay, who wants to be on this side? And everyone raises their hand, and then who wants to be on the other side? And then, so then what the teacher does is he says, okay, now people who raise their hand for this one, I'm going to switch it. So you're on the other side. And then you basically, you make an argument. And then you switch it back and you make an argument. And then what it does, though, is it's just an exercise that teaches you how to think critically and how to be more dispassionate and not to get the emotions out of it and just look at the raw facts. And when you can just look at the raw facts and keep emotions out of certain things, it's easier for you to then see maybe see the points that the other side might be making. And you know, but let me say this: don't try this at home because women hate it. Because what they'll say is like they're like, don't lawyer me. You know, don't do that lawyer stuff because, you know, basically, you know, if I got into a discussion or something, an argument with my ex, you know, she would put her point out, and then I would take her same point, and then I would find the flaw in it, and then I would give it back to her. And then that is so annoying because they know that this is what you are trained to do. You know, so I've had over 95 jury trials. So to her, it was not fair. So in my situation, I was damned if I do, damned if I don't, because then if I didn't argue back, then it was like, oh, you just think you're better than me. Yeah. And so, you know, this is one way for me. I had to learn how to actually turn it off, which is very difficult because this is what I do day in and day out. But I think as the relationship was over and we were now just roommates, it was so much more easier to argue with her. Because,
how come? Why would you say that?
Because I didn't care about the outcome. See,
so when you were attached to being right, is it okay if we use that?
Yeah.
When you were attached to being right, then you held your perspective tighter and you argued deeper. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, you know, think about any legal movie that you've seen. At some point, both of the attorneys, they really believe in their cause. And then what is just a case that had nothing really to do with them, they're just representing, they start going at each other because they're invested in the outcome. Yeah. And they're invested because that outcome says something about them as a lawyer, their standing in the community and whatnot. And so I think in a marriage, when, you know, I'm the man, I'm the alpha, you're the woman, I'm the breadwinner. So now, yes, my perspective should count more. So I had a lot more invested in it. But when the relationship was over, I knew we were leaving. She had a boyfriend. You know what? I don't care. And it's like I did a video, you know, and I'm gonna just have to say it because this is what the video is. Is sometimes you just have to learn to say, I don't give a fuck. And
that's what you said on your video on your YouTube,
on the YouTube, right? And you know, and if there was only some way I could learn to do that in the marriage when I did have something invested, I think it would have been a lot easier to navigate that. But it was only until I really didn't care what the results were going to be, because it's like there's no skin off of my, you know, I'm going to go in the room, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do that, and you have no say over it. So I know it's kind of weird because it almost sounds like, you know, you're not, us men, we're not caring. But when you have nothing riding on it, or like when you go to Vegas, you know, they say when you go to Vegas, take $200, you don't mind losing it, you go out and you play, no big deal, right?
Yeah. It comes to mind that I remember somebody said you can either be right or you can be happy.
Yeah.
And I think when I look back at my relationship,
I think it's a slippery slope.
I wanted to be, it got to a point where I wanted to be right, or because I want this, and you don't agree with it, then your opinion's a little wrong. I need to help you change your opinion because my opinion is obviously right. And because if you saw my opinion, we'd be getting along much better. And then she gets really defensive about her position. So no. You got to see that I'm right. And if you would just see my opinion that I'm right, then we would get along better, because we have that relationship in the middle, and that's what's at jeopardy. But I think when things switched is when I realized I'm trying to be right all the time, as if I'm going to win something, as if I'm just going to get something. And when I tried to be right through that divorce that I went to, the stronger I held on to being right, I went into family court, appellate court, legal court, and Supreme Court, hanging on to being right. and finally hanging on to right paid a really, really huge cost.
Yeah.
And I found out what that cost of being right was. And so it wasn't about being right or wrong anymore. It was about, what do I want? Am I happy?
Yeah.
And I'm responsible for this happy here, and you're responsible for that happy over there. And you're going to do your life the way you want and the way you love. I'm going to do life the way I want and the way I love. And if we're responsible for those two things, then maybe we can have a relationship in the middle. Now the relationship isn't at jeopardy because I got to have it my way or their way. I think what I said once is I took her out of the picture. I didn't make it about her. You're right, what you're doing. I took her out of the picture. And if she wasn't in the picture, then it was all about me. What am I doing? How am I being? And when I focused on that, then I could completely let her be how she wants to, react how she wants to, have her own opinion. And like you said, if I was being objective and my emotions weren't tied up in what she is because I was letting her completely be what she was. With that perspective, I began to see what was really happening and who I was really being and what the response was to how I was being.
Yeah.
Then I began to take a look at my contribution to the relationship. So I think I learned the hard way that having an I'm right or you're wrong philosophy is costly. It is really costly.
Well, I think, what I like about what just happened in about the last, 7 or 8 minutes is that Jeff said his perspective and how he looks at it. And you said yours, and mine is completely like the way I look at it. It literally is completely different, but it includes yours as well. Like the way I'm looking at it is like, well, what about this? What about that? Like I'm the curious guy. So I step back and I get curious, like, well, what about this? And I'm curious about this. And the what I like about getting men together like this in this is because we actually can see like these different perspectives versus thinking that there's only one perspective. And that's the I think the problem. And I think that's what we face so often as men is that we're in relationships, we're almost told by our partners is like, no, this is the perspective. Like, this is how we're going to raise the kids. This is how you do this. I read it in a book and this is right. And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. There's multiple ways, I say there's different ways, how many ways to skin a cat, there's all these different ways to look at something. And if we can demonstrate anything right here is that Jeff has a perspective, Bryan has a perspective, Martine has a perspective, and that's okay. I mean, it's like, okay, like even saying that's okay is like diminishing it, it's like, it's not that it's okay. It's like, that's the way we're built. Like we're men. This is the way we're built. We are working to get better day in and day out. Like we are working to get better and we're work in progress. And if you can communicate with us powerfully, that gives us the ability to communicate powerfully to you as well. But for me, it's my job to communicate powerfully. Like my job as a father, my job as the man, my job as the husband is to initiate that powerful communication. And if I get that back, awesome. But if I don't get that back, that's also awesome too. It's just, we're going to have to figure out a different way to navigate this.
It's like there's a place that we're going and there's a thing that we want. And I want that happy, fulfilled. Oh my God, I can't wake up for this life.
Yeah.
Now, how I'm going to get there, how Jeff's going to get there, how you're going to get there might be different based on so many different things. But all of us, like each one of us wants to be that happily divorced man, like you were talking about. In my journey, right? Just like, I don't know.
I'm happy. Yeah, I don't want to. I am. Oh my God, I am.
Right? Right? And so like Jeff's going to find his way and he's going to keep finding his way to being happily divorced. I'm going to find my way and I'm going to keep finding that way to be happily divorced. So is Martine. And it's in that common mission to keep being happily divorced. We may find it different ways. We may have different perspectives, but we're going to get there. And we're probably going to help somebody else who is struggling on that to be able to get there also.
But that's
That-
that's the idea of Men's Breakthrough, and that's the idea
Yeah.
of this Facebook page, is to do that. I know Jeff had something to say, because you looked like you were itching, brother.
No. Forgive me. My
Not at all. No, let's
daughter
jump in.
just
This
came
is
home
what
and
this
she
is
was,
about, man.
but what was going to say is, though, regardless of, all of our different, perspectives on how we're going to get there, we are trying to travel to the same direction.
Yeah.
And I think one thing we can all agree on, that it is about attitude. And I say that a lot on my, my YouTube channel. It's like, if you have negative thoughts, that's going to breed negative results. But
Yeah.
if you have positive thoughts, that's what you're going to achieve positive ends. And there's so many different ways of looking at, the divorce. It's just like, so I look at it, the fact, okay, so one of the things I used to hear about is like, oh, I used to lawyer my ex all the time when we would talk. And so now that we're apart, I'm looking at it positively, in a positive manner, that, okay, I need to work on that. Now, if I fix that, the next relationship I'm in, I shouldn't hear that if I've done the work. And so I know a lot of things happen in divorces, and I mean, in marriages, and whether you're right, I'm wrong. But the good thing, what we're trying to do, which is, you know, great, is that we are trying to look at ways to improve ourselves.
Yeah.
And that, to me, is the positive thing about divorce. Okay, so I had some character flaws, I had some problems, but you know what? I'm not going to say it was all her fault, but I am going to try and work on that. So at least when I go into the next relationship, that's not going to be the major stumbling point or thing that we fight over a lot. But it is about growth, and all the growth that we do. And this is why I say that I'm so happy to be divorced, because all the growth that we're doing now, like just this, we're talking about communication.
Yeah.
This helps us not only just with marriages, but like in our jobs
Yes.
and in our careers,
Yeah.
and with family members and friends, because if our spouses saw it, well, I'm sure people we work with or people we're in contracts with, that they see it. And if we become better communicators, look, that's money in our pocketbook. That's helping us in life to be more successful
Yep.
and whatnot. And then, and most of all, more successful with the eventual new lady. There is a new lady.
Right. When
Well,
she shows up.
there's two things I want to say about that. First off, the second part, I think that's really great. I love that positive perspective. The thing about being positive is that the idea is that, it's in hopes, or it's the intention is that you're going to have a positive outcome as a result of that. The thing is that we could be positive, yet the outcome doesn't necessarily going to align with our positivity. The benefit of being positive that I have found is that I can recover quicker when the things don't go in my direction, right? That mindset. So, case in point, I just talked to my son. He's 23 years old. His girlfriend broke up with him last week. He's like bummed. And I said, Jordan, so what are you going to do? And he said, I think I'm just going to drink for a month. And I said, well, it seems like that was the thing that was her complaint about you guys, is you guys are you guys drink too much, and you guys party a little too much. So she wants you to get better, and she wants to get better, but she said you can't. I hope I don't get in trouble for telling, for saying this, but so I said, Jordan, so now that you're apart, start working on yourself, because if what you're doing, and this ties into the negative thing, if what you're doing, which is the negative thing, you're gonna be guaranteed a negative result.
Mhm.
If you do the positive thing, I can't tell you when you're going to get that positive result, but I can tell you that you will get it. Like one day you
Absolutely.
will have that positive result, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, it's. I mean, people who've been in the military, people who've gone to college, people who've just worked at the same job a long time. You just know. You mean we all start off with green,
Yeah.
and we stumble, and then 5-10 years later, the new people come in and like, well, how are you so polished? How are you so? Because you know what, you didn't see a lot of the stumbles, a lot of falling and picking ourselves up, and I think one of the things I kind of gets me about, I'll only just give you this my opinion about divorce, is that I think that in one sense that the legal profession has found a way to just capitalize off of it. I mean, you make a lot of money off it. We're making a lot. I say we. I'm not no longer doing divorce, but they're making a lot of money off of people's misery.
Yeah.
And when people are negative, and like Bryan, you were saying that you wanted to be right. some of the lawyers, they're not going to stop you from trying to be right, because that just means they get to work more. And it means they get to make more money. So, it's like one of these things,
Yeah.
we have to get this out there. It's like, look, sometimes it might not be worth the fight. Sometimes we don't need to be as negative towards other partner, because we want to save ourselves money. You know what? And hold on just a minute. Hold on. Ask mommy.
Hey, real quick. So what? So real quick,
Can you excuse me for just a minute?
Robert, you're adding a lot of stuff in this feed. I just sent you a link to jump on the call so we could talk about it, because you have a lot of stuff to say. So what I'd love to do, Robert, is have you jump on the call with us, and then we'll just talk about what you're going through. So if you want, it'd be more of a coaching call. So it'd be more of like, let's help you work through what you're working through. If you're down for that, please jump on the call. I sent you the link. Jeff, do you have to jump?
Yeah, just for a second. Okay.
Cool.
Okay, hold on.
So
Cool. One thing that Jeff brought up that I hadn't thought about was, when I went through this, I realized that I wasn't playing a game well. And for me, it was the responsibility game.
Yeah.
I wasn't taking 100% responsibility of owning things. I would blame, I would shame, I would justify. And when I started to say, yeah, that's on me.
Yeah.
I may say something and completely piss off my partner, my girlfriend. I would completely piss her off. I tried to justify that. I tried to make it right, and it just got worse. But the day I started to say that negative situation hurt your feelings, said something, did something stupid, that's on me. I own that.
Yeah.
And then I moved into action.
That's cool. You know what? I was
can I
thinking
do?
about that today. I'm sorry. Go ahead. I'm gonna talk about responsibility in a second, but go ahead.
Cool. Yeah, and because responsibility was part of it.
Yeah.
Like she said, you don't even realize it, but when you said, "Why do I do this?" It hurt my feelings. And the old me would have, "Oh my God, you're upset at me, and I got to fix this. I got to do that." But it was risky. I said, "I'm sorry, I did that. I hurt your feelings."
Yeah. Oops. You just went out. Your sound just went out. Bryan, your sound went out. He's talking. He can't even hear me. I'm gonna pull him up.
But you know what's interesting? What's going on while he was talking?
What's that?
Is that I noticed that there were times when, and I think you know this, when the relationship is really, it's just over. It's just like you could just be looking at your spouse and she was talking like Bryan, and you don't hear anything.
Bryan, your sound was out.
It was just like, they just talk and they're saying something, but it's just, you're not hearing it. And she used to say all the time, it's like, you're not even listening. You're just formulating what you're going to say while I'm talking. And that kind of reminded me when Bryan was talking and then nothing was coming out of his thing.
It's going like this, but you're not hearing anything.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Bryan, you're the woman in this relationship right now. Can you hear us? You can't hear us?
Oh no, now she's doing what we do. She's like, I'm not listening.
Jump out, jump back in. How about you jump back and jump back in? Oh, I think you're there.
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay, you're good now. Okay, cool. You were saying a lot of really good stuff. So I invited Robert Brooker. He's like put a lot of stuff. He got a lot to say. So I invited him to jump on the call.
Cool.
If he wants to do that, that's great. On the if not, then cool. And I'll see him when he comes on. So Bryan, let's finish up what you were saying real quick, if you don't mind.
Okay. Not sure where I left off, but I think what I was trying to say was, instead of trying to be right and wrong, I chose to be responsible.
Yeah.
So the old me, she would have had a story. She would have been upset at me. I would have done something stupid or said something stupid, and I would have justified, made it right. How do I got to make you happy? All of that avoiding things, and it just made it worse.
Cool.
But when I was responsible, that result, that was on me. I did that. I take full responsibility for that. And then move into action. What do I need to do to make it better?
Yeah.
That seemed to improve the relationship.
Yeah. Well, I think responsibility, that I was thinking about that today. And when I was talking to my son, is the whole idea of responsibility doesn't necessarily feel better at first, but it will feel better. Really, it will feel better really quick, because responsibility just gives you the power. It gives you a degree of power that all right, I may have this mess I'm dealing with right now, it might be kind of messy, but you could see where it will, you have something to say about it because you're taking responsibility. You're saying, I'm now going to respond to what's here, and I have that ability. So I like that, the whole concept of being responsible. And one of the things that I run into with so many of the men that I talk to that are going through divorce and all that is that they're struggling with being responsible, or being able to say, how am I responsible for my wife that screwed around on me? How am I responsible for this? I did not want this. I did not create this. And at the point that us men, we take responsibility for a degree of that or a part of that, then we actually get our power back, and it happens immediately.
I agree. I think that when I came to the point that everything is my fault, everything is my responsibility.
Fault is different. Fault is different.
Well, the fault may be just an easy way for the mind to grasp onto it. But when I chose to be responsible for the start of the marriage, the problems of the marriage, the way that I took ownership of my part. And I quit trying to make her wrong, blame her, blame the attorneys. I quit that. And I said, okay, Bryan, the way this whole went, that's you. That's a reflection of you. Own that. Quit trying to blame other people. And what are you going to do about it?
Yeah. So one of the things in the description was, I wrote, one of the hardest things for people to do is look at an opposing perspective openly and neutrally. Let's hit that really quick. I'm going to have Jeff address that. I'll have Bryan address that. I'll address that. And then Robert, I'd like to hear your story, and let's talk a little bit about that. But first I want to have you, but Robert, I'll have you address that topic, and then we'll go back to your story. So Jeff, the thing is, one of the hardest things for people to do is look at an opposing perspective openly and neutrally.
Yeah, well, the thing is, by going to law school and then being in the courtroom, the reason why people have a difficult time doing this, and maybe this should be like something they should teach in school now, is that lawyers, we are taught. I mean, so from day one in law school, 3 years, we're arguing back and forth, both sides of the argument. Then if we're into litigation, that's what we're doing. That's not what the normal ordinary person is, has in their life. Pretty much you grow up, you have your belief system and you believe it, and that's it. And usually we surround ourselves with people who affirm what we believe in. And very rarely do we have in our circle people who challenge us.
Yeah, absolutely.
We don't keep people in our circles who challenge us.
I don't need that.
If you're not, if you're not an Oakland Raider fan, then I kick rocks. I ain't got nothing to do with you, or something like that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that simple. It's a little bit more complicated. But growing up, people are not taught how to argue. They're not taught how to look at things objectively. And so that becomes a problem, and especially with us men, because for the most part, we're going to be in positions of power and authority. And I'm not talking about in the relationship now, I'm talking about in life. Yeah. So if we're in the military, we're going to be a sergeant, an officer, or a warrant officer. On the job, we're going to be a supervisor, or we're going to be a boss or something like that. Yeah. And as we get older, we're going to have levels of responsibility that we're telling people what to do, how to do it, when to do it. There's no back talk. There may be some discussion, but there's really not, because it's usually, we're working because this is why I have this position in the company. But when it gets to the marriage, if we're not careful, we carry that same mentality into the marriage.
Yeah.
And, and if the wife says something or disagrees with us, we're like, no, I am the supervisor. I am the GS-13. I am the
Don't
GS-12.
you know who I am?
You do. It's like what you say might be valid, but I'm working on some other information that you don't know that I don't have the time to tell you about right now. So you just have to go my way or the highway.
So so the question is, let's say your wife, so she has a different perspective. How do you look at that perspective openly and neutrally? I know, I get it. You're right. But how do you look at her perspective, or do you, or maybe you don't?
Yeah, well, it really depends. It really depends on what it is, because as we all know,
let's say it doesn't matter. Let's say anything, any perspective she has. She can be the craziest perspective, craziest idea. Do you have a way to navigate that?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Because depending on how crazy it is, I'll either just agree with her. Depending on what I have to do, I might disagree with her, because I think what I learned to do in 13 years is how to pick my battles.
Okay.
And some things I'm like, okay, if I disagree with her, is this going to cost me any skin? No. You know what? Fine. Yep. Yeah, baby. I agree that was a bad call in the football game. They shouldn't have done this or whatever.
Mhm.
But then if there's things that that are detrimental to the functioning of the household or the raising of the children, then you have to step in and say, and I think what you have to, what it is like, okay, why am I trying to win this argument? And I think
Mhm.
it's trying to get her to see why you're trying to win. If it is because it's going to be the kid's future, then that has to be the goal. It's not, I'm not saying that you're wrong just because you're dumb or you're stupid, but I'm saying you're wrong because this does not go along with where we're eventually trying to go as a family.
Love it.
And I
Okay.
think that's how I would try and navigate it, always making it not just the fact that I'm right. It's just
So
like,
use reason. So you're using reason,
well,
intellect, fact.
oh, right, whatever our goals are,
Yeah.
usually people know what their goals are in their families. They know if they want to earn money, they want to live a certain place, they want their kids to do a certain thing. And
Yeah.
I just try and say, if you take your rationale and draw it out to its full conclusion, does that get us to where we need to be?
Well, say that again. That was real cool. So if we take your rationale and we draw it out, you say that again. I'm sorry.
Draw it out to its full conclusion. I mean, take it all the way out. Does it get us to where we need to be? Because sometimes,
I like that.
she might be like, you know what, I want to spend $500 to go do this. And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, if we spend that $500 at the end of the month when we need this, where's that going to do? What's that going to do for family vacation in the summertime? Because we
Yeah.
blew $500 for a purse.
Yeah.
Just little kind of things like that. And sometimes I read this book once. Sometimes, I didn't have a dad to tell me this, and I didn't have a mother to tell me this either, but I found out the hard way. Sometimes you're just going to lose because this is just the nature of how women think. You're just going to lose, and you have to be okay with that. That they're just not going to agree with you, and that's fine.
Let me
that's
kind of
life.
sum that up because we gotta
Yeah.
move on real quick. So I heard you say is like the first thing you said was agree with it, and then you then shifted that and you said, you something that I would call curiosity. Like is that does that give us what we want? And putting the onus on the other person and having them think about what their position is.
Yep.
Okay. And then the last one, I forgot what it was, but what was the last part you just said?
I can't remember. I said a lie.
It was good. Go back because this was really
Drawing
good.
out to its full conclusion.
Oh, yeah, drawing out. He said that one. The drawing out to its full conclusion.
Nice flow there.
What's that? What was that, Robert?
That was a nice flow. Those
Yeah,
words.
it was really good. I definitely gonna go back and listen to this. It's really good. Bryan, okay, so the question is one of the hardest things for people to do, or the statement is one of the hardest things for people to do is look at an opposing perspective openly and neutrally. You got like 2 minutes. What is your strategy for that?
I think the first thing that I tell myself is one, nobody's going to die. This isn't about me. Nobody's going to die here.
That's a great one.
And then the second one is it's not about you, Bryan. It is not about you. All right. So if it's not about me, then I want to find out, what is this opposing opinion?
Yeah.
So if I don't completely understand it, I'll tell them, tell me more. I need more information. Why is this an opposing opinion? Why do you feel so strongly about that? And then I'll ask them that question, why? And when I look at more information about why you have this opinion and why do you have this opinion, and I seek first to understand, and if I really understand, so what I heard you say is that this and this, is that right? And sometimes when I repeat it back to make sure I understand, they're like, well, no. What I really meant was, okay, so you meant that that's what you feel and that's what you want to do. Yeah. Then I'll ask them, do you understand my opinion? Well, of course, you want to do this. Well,
Not
no.
really.
Right?
Yeah.
I'd be like, you're going to do this because you're going to do that. Well, no, like we got an argument because you're going to do this because you're always trying to step in and you're always trying to prove me wrong. Like, okay, I got that. I hear that. Did I say that you were wrong? No.
See, this is a really interesting thing, and I want to bring everybody back to the screen because you could resolve. Jeff, tell me, Robert, Bryan, you can resolve one issue, one little part of the issue, and say something, and all of a sudden you're in a brand new fight, a brand new issue, like immediately, like we just resolved that, and then all of a sudden we're in another conflict, we're in another little pickle.
Yeah, it's because it's always in a state of flux. I mean,
Yes.
and it just changes. I try and use the thing is about, and that's why I was just saying about being divorced, what's so positive about it is because the next relationship we go to, we have all these things we get to put in our little arrow quiver. But I play this game with this young lady that I was seeing, and it's called "This is what the guy hears, and this is what the girl hears." So she'll say something to me, and then I'll say, "Okay, this is what the guy hears," and it'll be like blah blah blah, and she'll be like, "No," and then I'll say something. She says, "Well, this is what the girl hears," and because of how we are and how we see life, we interpret words differently. We interpret, situations differently. And it's just like, I'm like, that is not what I was trying. Like for instance, I'll just a quick example. I told the lady, I said, look, I tell people when I meet them on my dating app, it's like, I got an 11-year-old daughter and she is the love of my life. She comes first. Yeah. And she goes, okay, this is what the lady hears. You're not going to put me first.
Yeah, exactly.
Not that you're a good father, not that you are. Yeah. It's like, you're not going to put me first. And, and so that just shows you how, so even in just think about little arguments that we have with our spouses day to day with just mundane stuff, how we hear different things because of maybe they're needy. Maybe they want to be first. Maybe they're feeling, so it's work. So anyone ever asked me about getting married, I'm like, it's always
going to be a perspective, and there's always going to be a perspective.
Right.
There's always going to be a perspective. And I love what you said earlier about facts. Facts are great, but what happens with a fact? It creates a story. Every fact creates a story, and your ability to navigate the facts and the stories and keep them separate is it's going to connect to your ability to be able to navigate through relationships, navigate through your own emotions, your own needs, and then help somebody else even navigate through theirs.
Yeah.
So cool.
It's like that opposing opinion. There's a reason. There's a reason they have that opposing opinion. There's a reason they feel strong about that.
Yeah.
And if I can understand that, then we can try to find a solution.
So what I heard Jeff say and what I heard Bryan say, that to me, and I just always bring it back to curiosity. I wrote a book called The Curiosity Theory. So brings it back to curiosity. Curiosity to me, and I haven't found a better neutralizer. Curiosity is the ultimate neutralizer. It just seems to be that when you can tap into your own curiosity, step back, be neutral, and be curious. I'm curious about your perspective. And then you put that curiosity on the other person, like you did, Jeff. Do you think this will get us what we want? Is this going to get us what we want? That kind of thing. So Robert, real quick, the question is, the statement is, one of the hardest things for people to do is look at an opposing perspective openly and neutrally. How do you navigate that? You got because we're at almost 45 minutes. So we're going to be on for about another 15 minutes. So you got 1 minute to respond to that.
Well,
welcome to the show.
Yes. Welcome.
Thank you. And I was just feeling pain when I flipped you guys on, and I was like, oh, I got to do something about the pain. And I use my pain, because great humor is often born of pain. In my case, mine. And but what I do, to seek understanding in how the person with the opposing viewpoint, how they came to form that opinion, what happened when they were growing up, who was influential in their life, were there any big impactful events, and who did they look up to? And and then demonstrate that understanding in your conversation.
Very cool.
And that's like a kind of like a come around the back doorway into where they feel like they've been heard and understood. And it's big. It's a big thing.
Cool. Yeah, excellent. And then awesome. You said you put something in a private chat, which I wanted to address, which was "Never Split the Difference" by Chris Voss. That's the way he approaches conflict is really powerful. So, yeah, that's a great book. That's definitely a great book, including my book.
For a second, I was just saying, you would be a great defense attorney, because essentially that's what defense attorneys do when the prosecutor has the stone cold law and the facts from the police report and everything like that, and the defense attorney's job is basically to humanize them, give them a reason why they acted, and show a different side, and and that connects a lot of times with the jury. So I just thought that was very fascinating that you said that, because it is so true about showing people why did they make that decision? Why does your ex or your wife think this way or feel this way? Maybe she had a overbearing brother or a bad relationship in the
Yeah.
past, and so forth like that. So
Yeah, because most people's strategies to get their needs met is it makes sense to them. Like, you did this because that made sense to me to do it that way. And then when you can listen to somebody, if you can listen, like I said, openly and neutrally, you don't have to agree with it. However, what you're going to do is you're going to have an insight into why that person's doing what they're doing. You're going to have an understanding, like Bryan had used that word earlier, understanding. You're going to have an understanding of why the person does what he does or did what they did.
It works great at an artist's showing too. When you don't get the artwork, learn who the artist is. The same thing with the artist, so the artist feels respected and understood in who they are, even though you might not always get the art, but you can get the person.
Yeah. So real quick, Robert. So thank you for jumping on. You were making some comments. You wrote a bunch of stuff. So real quick, like 1 minute, tell us your story, and then what I'm going to do is ask Bryan to give you some feedback about that, if that's okay, if you're open to that, Jeff, and then I'll conclude, and then we'll finish up the show. Is that cool?
Sure.
So you got like 1 minute to tell your story. I think you're frozen. Okay, there you go.
Okay, marriage number 2. I didn't expect. Yeah, I was, but I did expect it, in that I had asked the universe to hook me up with someone who was a lot like me, except a girl. And that was as specific as I got, and I later realized that it wasn't specific enough. At first glance, did exactly what I asked, and it came through, gave me a little heads up about a week and a half out before the first message came in, and I was on camera saying that I got that certain feeling. It's always happened when I meet someone new, about a week and a half out, I get a certain feeling someone new is going to come into my life, and I would just be waiting, and who are you going to be? Then I'd know. Well, Sarah sent me a message and told me our show inspired her to start vlogging. I was like, ooh, that felt pretty good. And when girls say nice things to me, I sort of tend to marry them. So be careful.
That's kind of, I think that's
the same way.
We're all guilty for that. Would you be guilty?
Yeah, I'm guilty of that.
Oh, Bryan, you're so handsome. What are you doing tomorrow?
That's right. That's right. Here's the ring. Keep saying stuff like that.
Yeah. Well,
keep going, bro.
Yeah, we started hanging out, Google Hangouts, a couple hours every night, sometimes 4 hours. She would do her work. I would do my thing, which is often World of Warcraft or whatever else I was doing. And you just got to know each other. We were comfortable in each other's company, and we always were. I don't know why her parents felt the need to go to such elaborate lengths and say what they thought, because I'm sure people at work thought I was beating her. That's the way they treated us. The one time I was taking pictures at an event for a supervisor who had ALS. Every time I went to the bathroom, all the ladies crowded around her. When I come back, they all left. And I think that was weird. And she's like, yeah. She's like, she was just telling them what her mother told her to tell them. And she could do that because of the Asperger's. It really kind of kept her in like a muted place. And to get through the cloud, you needed like a drill sergeant voice, or her mother used the nastiest ass voice I've ever heard any woman ever use on anyone. And I used to listen to that Sunday afternoon and not understand why I was hearing what I was hearing, which sounded horrible to me.
Can I ask you, are you on the spectrum?
Yes. No, people have asked. She is, though.
You talked about Asperger's, so if you're going to say,
I was tested. I was tested. My family was convinced I was on the spectrum. No, I'm just naturally crazy, and I'm proud of it, and I celebrate it. I go off on tangents.
There you go.
So what's the challenge you're facing, Robert? What's the challenge?
I think it's a funding challenge, quite frankly. I met Dr. Noah St. John. If I got his name right? I really dig what he's laying down just on this past weekend. And I mean, seriously, it was like, where was this guy in the past? He's just, I'm missing some fundamental things the way I was raised. And he's just telling you how to do it all. He's telling you what to do.
I'm going to stop you again. So yeah. You talked about a lot of stuff on you. And so
I don't have a relationship energy right now. And the girls don't believe me. and that's kind of
You
tiring.
don't have relationship energy. What does that mean?
Um, uh, I don't I like to be married. You know, it's I'm I'm cool with that. I just don't feel like being married all the way right now.
And
Friendship
how's that
connections.
a challenge? How's that a problem?
Oh, because they keep reaching out to me, these ladies, and some of them are pretty persistent. And then when I start to get, yeah, and they send some messages. Let me tell you. And COVID messed up the last one. That was really nice. I was like, she asked me if I would give her children. I was thinking, and I said yes. And I made a decision to never have kids at 20. And I thought that was really
Yeah,
easy.
okay.
And,
So
yeah, so
what's the
I'm
challenge? You just
I
don't.
saw
Is
Penny.
it that you don't want to have kids? You don't want to have kids. I heard that. You made the decision at 20.
Well, yeah, there was a
And a lot
reason
of
that
women are chasing you. They want to be serious. You don't want to be serious. Is there
um,
something you're?
yeah, I made a mistake of listening to someone when they said money wasn't important, and I focused solely on relationship building back in 2011, and getting that getting money back to a place of importance
Mhm.
has been a struggle, and it has nothing to do with with relationships. They continue to flourish, um, but I'm thinking I'm almost to the point where money is going to start coming in the way it should be, and it's not going to bother me. Like, oh no, too much money's coming in. I better stop doing what I'm doing and go back and mess things up. Um, I'm not going to have any excuses for messing things up because I'm learning from good people
Good. Okay.
as
Cool.
much as I
So
can.
let me stop you again. So, I just want to be real clear what we're talking about. Okay. So,
Mm.
relationships are good. You don't really you got people got these girls that are like, hey, let's hang out. You're not really wanting to go any deeper than that. Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't have
Okay.
resources
And
to
then
hang out
you're
with them.
got it. Okay. And then the other thing is that money because you focused on relationships in 10, 15 years ago, because you focus on relationship, you didn't focus on money. And so now you're developing your relationship with money so that you can have more abundance. Is that
Mhm.
would that be accurate?
Yeah, so the
Okay.
circle of abundance can be complete.
Cool, cool.
Yeah,
And
Lauren has to pull me back in every 30 seconds too.
so I want to say something about that really quick, and might not pertain to you, but it's something that I found, and then I'd like Jeff and Bryan to respond to that too. So this might not be specifically for you, Robert, but I would appreciate that you brought that up. So one of the things that I found when I talk to a lot of men is that sometimes as men we focus on relationships and then we maybe we don't focus on our health, maybe we don't focus on our careers, we do certain things and we build habits, really strong habits in one part or two parts of our lives, but there's these other parts of our lives that we don't build those muscles, those habits, those strengths. And there's that that if you guys seen that balance wheel, like my health is really good, I'm making a lot of money, but my kids don't talk to me and my wife is leaving me and I have a mistress, so that life is
Hmm.
hardly ever in perfect balance, right? Would you agree with that? So what is your way, Jeff, to create life in balance as much as it can be in balance?
Well, I think, and I'm going to kind of address some of the things that Robert was talking about
Yeah.
here. It's having a perspective of what you want out of life, your goal. And I think, it's just like maybe I did an episode and maybe we need to revisit the definition of marriage and what marriage really is and what it should be. Some people have a religious viewpoint about it, and that's fine, but doesn't mean we can't look at it. But I kind of tend to look at marriages now as a business proposition. It's two people coming together to make a household work, and with children and finances and everything like that, and
Yeah.
with some little love making and great, things in there. And so it's like, where do we want to go with this marriage? We want to be together for a certain amount of time. We want to live here. We want to be retired, and we want our kids to go to Ivy League schools and blah, blah, blah. Okay, so let's work towards that. That's the carrot that sits out there that drives everything that we do. And I think that's the same thing with what we're talking about, ourselves. We kind of have to figure out what's important to us in life, because it's not enough time to be everything and to be good at everything. It's just like you look at basketball players. You got LeBron James. He's a good all around player, but he still sucks at the free throw line. Shaquille O'Neal, dominant player, still
Yeah.
sucks at the free throw line. So very rarely do you get someone who's good at everything. So I
Yeah.
think we have to find out what's important to us. And that's only a question that only a man can answer to himself. His wife can't answer it. He has to answer that for himself, and then put that goal out there and work at it, and not be afraid, and don't be afraid to ask for help. Like, for instance, I got too much time. I mean, I don't have enough time to learn how to eat properly. So I hire a nutritionist.
Yeah.
I don't have enough time to know which weights to use when I go to the gym. So I get a personal trainer. So if you have the wherewithal to do that, never be afraid to ask for help. I need help communicating. There's a lot of stuff on YouTube. There's a lot of stuff on Audible. Ask for that help, and to get to where you want to go. But it all starts with having a goal and knowing where you want to go.
I like that. So I'm going to kind of sum that up a little bit the way I
Mhm.
heard you say it. So, know what you're about, have a goal, have a target,
Yep.
and then be willing to ask for help.
Yep.
And then take advantage of what you're really good at, ask
Yep.
for help what needs work.
Yep.
Awesome. I love that. It's great wisdom. Bryan.
I find that what I found is that, and from some of the studies and the work that I've done, that in life, we're trying to create health and happiness and wealth. And those are some of the three things that are the core things that we're trying to create in our lives. And in that way of creating that, we have 9 environments in our life. Like Jeff mentioned, health, eating, nutrition, physical health, relationship health, financial health, business health, network health. So there's 9 different environments that affect our lives. And when we're paying attention to those environments, because like a spider's web, each one of those environments affects the other ones. So if my financial isn't good, my relationship isn't going to be good. My relationship isn't good, then my financial. I learned that the hard way. I thought my relationship was good, but it wasn't really good. And when I changed that relationship to make it better, my finances were affected. So in my life, when I'm paying attention to these 9 environments and trying to keep them in balance, like you said, in a wheel, then I find I'm more easily able to create that health and happiness and wealth I want.
That's really cool. Awesome. Cool. Well, let's, we need to kind of finish up. We're at like 56 minutes, and I'd like to make sure that we're always under an hour. So Robert, thank you very much. I'm going to bounce you right now from the show. Thanks for coming, hanging out. And
thanks, Robert.
Jeff,
Yeah.
final thoughts, bro.
Hey, this has been fantastic. And it's really in line with what I'm trying to do with my YouTube channel. It's just about us as men looking at divorce in a total different way. It is not like a zero-sum game. I lost, I got to pay spousal support, I don't have full custody. Forget all of that. Let's look at the positive stuff, because from all this negative stuff that goes around in a divorce, we can use it in a positive way to make ourselves better. And we can make ourselves better, and that's going to improve our career. That's going to improve our health, make sure we might even live longer. And it's definitely going to improve our next relationship. So even though things look bad, there's always a better way of looking at it, in a positive way, and then just grow. So I totally enjoyed this today. Thank you so much for inviting me.
You bet, Jeff. Thank you. We're definitely going to have you back.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
You bet. Bryan, final thoughts.
Like Jeff was mentioning, was cool point. Divorce is not the end of it. Divorce is not the end game. But actually, if you realize it, divorce is a new beginning. You get to identify your identity. What is your identity? Who are you? What are you capable of doing? It can be the start of something so amazing. Because it's better that a bad thing end than it keep going. And now that the bad thing's ended, you have the opportunity to find out your identity and what you can do in life and what you want in life. And it can actually be really, really transformable. And like Martine says, don't do it alone. Yeah. We weren't meant to. Find that brother, find the men, get yourself supported, and on your way to your new identity.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it.
Oh, hey, Martin, can I just say something really quickly?
Yeah.
I just wanted to say, it's for those of you who are out there, we care. Okay. If you feel at any time that life is not worth it, that is not the answer, please get help. Okay, because we do not need to lose any more men to suicide because of divorce. Because divorce is not the end of life. It's not the end of it all. So please ask for help, and we care about you.
Absolutely. Thank you. That's beautiful. So a couple things. So let me go back and read. So the whole idea today was I'm right, you're wrong, and multiple perspectives about the same thing at the same time. So if you go back and you watch this video, so I'm going to encourage some of you guys to go back and watch the video, watch different parts, and notice that Jeff was talking about, he had something he wanted to communicate. Bryan had something he wanted to communicate. I had something I wanted to communicate. Robert came on, he had something he wanted to communicate. Very, very seldom were we completely aligned in what we were talking about, because what happens with us is that we hear what we hear, we then create stories, and then we then communicate the best way we can from our perspective. And the other thing that is part of that perspective is that we as people, we all have something to say. We have something we want to share. Yeah. And so that comes out. And oftentimes we'll like, okay, I get it. Here's the question. Okay, but first I'm going to talk about this, and that's how we're built as human beings. So the ability to stay in a conversation long-term, like an hour and 29 seconds now. So the ability to stay in a conversation and be able to really just keep honing in on the topic, that's really a very, very hard thing to say. So in a sense we've demonstrated in a sense what the challenge is, to be able to hear another person's perspective, to be able to be neutral in that perspective, and to be open to that perspective. And even to be able to stay on that perspective or stay on that topic. So the point is that we as human beings, as men, that we really are very complicated. We have so much to say. We have so much that we want to get out. Robert came on. If you notice his what he was saying in his comments, he was saying all this stuff in the comments. I said, hey, come and talk about that. And all of a sudden he's talking about all this other stuff. That's not a bad thing. That's just how we're put together. Yeah. We're just built. Would you agree, guys?
Yeah, absolutely.
We're just built that way. So, the idea is of Men's Breakthrough. The idea of this page is that we can bring our perspectives. We can bring what we need to say. We can bring some of our pain. We can bring some of our wisdom and share it with each other. So I think what Bryan, what you were saying at the very end, and Jeff, what you were saying is look for what you're good at. Look at what you're good at. Figure out what you want to do. What is it you want to create for your life? What are your goals? And focus on those goals. And then the other thing is, and I wrote that as a note, is and ask for help. Be willing to ask for help.
Yes.
And because the act of asking for some help, for support, for help is, I believe, the absolute definition of courage. It's the definition of courage, because we're willing to say, hey, I'm going to listen to something. I'm going to suspend my belief. I'm going to step back from my position, from being right, and I'm going to be open. And that ability to do that vulnerability, that courage, is something that we want to teach more men, or we want to encourage more men to do. We don't have to teach it, but it's like, let's build that muscle, right? You know what I'm saying?
There's no shame in asking for help.
And the cool thing about it too is if we learn this as men, we get to pass it down to our children and our grandchildren, and that just makes just better generations, to come. Because like I said, no one taught me this stuff, so it'd be nice for us now to pass it on down.
Absolutely. God bless, guys.
Thank
Jeff,
you so much.
Thank you so much for hanging out. Definitely gonna have you more. Bryan, thanks for hanging out. Robert, thanks for hanging out. The show's called Men's Breakthrough Hangout, and we're going to do it every Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. And if you want to be a guest on it, if you have a perspective, you have something you want to talk about, by all means, let me know. Just send me a private message. And Jeff, what I'd love to do is I'd love to have a conversation about what you were talking about, what you said, redefining marriage. Okay. And then you didn't say that. I know that's not what you said.
No, that's what I did.
Okay.
Yeah, I did say that.
Redefining marriage, because who defined marriage? And we can get into it and talk another 2-3 hours. But let's have that as a topic, and we'll jump on that in the future, right?
All right, sounds good.
Thanks a lot, guys.
You did a great job, Martin.
I really appreciate it.
God bless.
Bye-bye.